from the sidelines. I'm your host, Joey Tysick, my partner, Malik Hill. And I just thought that was a funny clip to play at the beginning of this one because it's official. The Bears are committed to Mitch Trubisky. Go Lions.
Listen, it's great to hear the Bears still can't get over their quarterback problems. Rex Grossman, back in the day, he was very average, but they got to a Super Bowl because of that great defense with Brian Urlacher and all of them. Then Jay Cutler was actually good, but they're the Bears. And even with Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, there still wasn't enough for them to do anything. And Jay Cutler still was a turnover machine at times.
Right,
so,
Jay Cutler being one of those gunslinger type of guys.
But now, we move on to young Mitchell, the guy that can still barely throw to his left.
Hey, that's all right.
When he's on, he looks like he can be really good. But how often is he on? How often?
Not sure. So Kirk Cousins, best quarterback in the NFC North next season.
The best quarterback in the NFC North this season might be P.J. Walker of the XFL. If you haven't been paying attention, the young man has been balling out. He's coming back to the league, and he's going to wreck somebody's training camp chances. He's climbing up that depth chart. He's lighting it up in the XFL.
Oh boy,
it's getting better if you haven't watched it, Joey.
Okay,
it's getting better.
One thing that I thought is interesting, I'll bring this up real quick. I thought would be really cool. A lot of people have mentioned that at the end of the season, the best XFL team should play the worst NFL team and try to. And if the NFL team loses, they go down to the XFL. If the XFL team wins, they go to the NFL.
That sounds like real entertainment, but no, they're not putting money into that.
I know.
That's like some longest yard stuff right there.
It
the
would
convicts
be cool,
versus the
then
guards.
I'd pay attention. Then I might pay attention.
It's too much. Just enjoy the purity of football. The purity of football.
I guess. Anyway, maybe we'll talk a little bit more football towards the end of the show. There's a couple things for the Lions that we might talk about. But bigger news, I think, still is college basketball with the crazy season that it's been, that we keep talking about. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the season as March Madness approaches. My favorite time of the year. Michigan State is still in this weird unknown, and they play for their final 4 games. They get to play 4 ranked opponents. As now, the Big Ten is back into the top 25. Michigan is back in the top 25. Michigan State is back in the top 25. Ohio State has crept their way back in, and Michigan State has to play Iowa, Maryland, Penn State, and Ohio State.
And Ohio State, who's ranked again. Not the...
They're back on track.
Yeah. It's looking rough for the Spartans right now.
Yeah, and Michigan State did just beat Nebraska by 21, which I guess is all right. It's a needed win. They needed to win it. Nebraska hasn't been that scary this season. What do you think about Michigan State headed down the stretch? Obviously, tonight they play Iowa, which is a big game for them. Do you think it's win or bust at this point? Like, especially for this game at least, where like if they lose this game, do they lose at least 3 of the last 4?
If they lose this game, I think there is a very good chance they could lose 3 out of the next 4 because their inconsistency with offense, their overall inconsistency with playmaking all throughout the season, they really lack veteran leadership outside of Cassius Winston. They needed a guy like Joshua Langford, and they really needed Hauser, which Tom Izzo, I understand why you were so mad because he would have been your most efficient and most productive offensive player this year. But you got to do the best you can with what you have, and I think Tom Izzo has not done that this year, and he's also made excuses about it, which really annoys me because you know what you have, you know the freshmen you have, you know your limitations, and you know the strengths of all your guys. But it seems like this entire season, he has held back. He's held back younger guys, and he's let his older guys do whatever they want. And it's not leading to anything like really. I don't see them making any type of run in the tournament this year. I don't think they really could make a run in the Big Ten tournament. they have to win like 3 out of the next 4 games to really hit a stride and become the March team that everybody expects Michigan State to be. But if Tom Izzo doesn't, I think he needs to drastically change his game plan for tonight's game, especially with them going against Luka Garza, who has torched every big man in the Big Ten this season.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Tillman has to be ready when he's on Luka Garza. If they double team Luka Garza, they have shooters on the outside. This is not going to be an easy game. Iowa is going to fight them all the way to the end. I don't see this being a blowout. If Tom Izzo doesn't change up his game plan and trust some different guys, if he doesn't put more trust into younger guys, there needs to be a balance, and it's not there right now. And I'm not sure if he's going to do it. To be honest, I'm not sure if he's going to do it.
Yeah. One of my biggest concerns is the inconsistency. And now I think Iowa is going to be a dark horse in the tournament. I think they could possibly make a run. They have the makeup to do so. But just talking, like last week we talked about Rocket Watts finally having a really good game, maybe being that other guy to step up. And then in this Nebraska game, obviously, you have a night off or you have an off night. He was 1 of 8, 0 of 3. He finished with 3 points. And then Gabe Brown finally stepped up, who we thought early on in the season might do something. He had 17 points against Nebraska, 6 of 9 shooting, 5 of 8 from the 3. Kyle Ahrens had a solid game. He was 4 of 6 from the 3 with 14 points. Aaron Henry played 37 minutes, 13 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He shot okay, but he played 37 minutes, the most of anybody.
That's although I understand getting Aaron Henry confidence, that's the thing I'm talking about. Aaron Henry, he's shown this season that he does not have the ability to be that second go-to guy that can produce at a high level. You need to feed Rocket Watts early so he can get into a rhythm. You know what type of player he is, but you favor other guys more than him because you feel like these are my vets. I have to get them confidence first. You're trying to win games, Izzo. I'm sorry. There has to be a balance. There has to be more than what he's doing so far. It seems like he's just letting things happen that don't need to happen. And, of course, Michigan State fans will never throw blame on Tom Izzo. They'll throw blame on Rocket for not shooting well every other game. They'll throw blame on everybody else, but Tom Izzo has to coach better, and he just hasn't done it this season.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the guys just aren't buying in or if something mental with these guys, because it seems like we keep talking about they have talent on this team. Like, there shouldn't be a problem. So then you're like, well, maybe Tom Izzo is doing something different. I don't know. It's hard to say because we're not in the locker room.
It seems like every single game he switches up starting lineups. He's like switching rotations. Sometimes Gabe Brown plays like 20 minutes. Other games he'll play like 7. Like it's so weird to me that he just won't stick with something and give guys certain roles and give guys certain it's frustrating. It's hard to like put even more details on it because it seems so simple that you're this great of a coach, Tom Izzo. You should know exactly what to do. And it seems he's just not doing it.
Yeah. Do you think they're more in the realm of possibility of losing these last 4 games or winning more than losing or losing more than winning?
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't see them winning all 4. I also don't see them losing all 4. I think 2 out of 4 is honestly makes the most sense. Which ones are away?
Let me get back to the schedule real quick.
Because I think that really.
I believe. Oh, wait, here we go. So Iowa's at home, which is nice. Then they're at Maryland, at Penn State. They're back home for Ohio State.
Man, yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they went 2-2. I also wouldn't be surprised if they went 3-1, and they somewhat started figuring things out slowly in this stretch. But this game Everybody has to step up. Tom Izzo has to be on top of his game. No more messing around. No more experimenting with stuff. You have to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, then you'll lose control of the whole season. And it's that simple, honestly.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is they haven't played Iowa all season. Unlike Maryland and Penn State, who they've played already before, and both of those games being very close. They lost to Maryland by 7, lost to Penn State by 5. So at least in that regard, they have familiarity with those opponents. And then Ohio State has been kind of similar, where they've been up and down all season. And you get that at home for the final game of the regular season. So maybe I think they're likely to win that game at least. And then with Penn State coming off a couple losses, maybe there's a chance they get that game. I still think Iowa is a doable matchup because Garza and Tillman is an interesting matchup. Like, I think Tillman, if he takes it to heart and he plays like he did in the tournament last year, I think, then maybe he could slow down Garza. But at the same time, like you said, Garza has torched everybody.
Yeah. Xavier Tillman has the physical advantage, but in terms of skill, Luka Garza if he scores like 2 or 3 straight baskets on him, I think X could lose some confidence and it could go downhill very fast.
Yeah. So Michigan State still up in the air. It's hard to gauge where this team is going and how well they can do because they have the talent. It's just not coming together. On the other side, Michigan back to finding their groove. I'm still concerned about the team because they're similar, where they'll have these streaks of up and down, and you want them to be up going into the tournament. They've won their last 5, beating Michigan State, Northwestern, Indiana, Rutgers, and Purdue. Not the craziest schedule, but Michigan State is a solid win. Indiana's a solid win.
That win at Rutgers was huge.
Rutgers was a good win.
They didn't have Isaiah Livers, so
yeah,
that was one of the toughest wins I've seen them get in a long time.
And beating Purdue is always solid. I think going to Purdue to beat them, even though Purdue's towards the bottom of the Big Ten, they're just as weird as any other team in the Big Ten.
They blew out Michigan State early in the season.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Big Ten, is that every game is almost dangerous. It's so weird because you're like, oh, Purdue's a really good team. That's going to be a tough game. And then you look at the standings, they're 7-10 and 14-14 overall.
A few weeks ago, Nebraska almost beat Maryland at Maryland. That shows you how weird this conference is.
Yeah, because Northwestern and Nebraska are just at the bottom, 1-15 in the conference, 2-14, and then everything from there on is 7 wins and above in the conference at least. And mostly the bottom 4 teams in the Big Ten, Minnesota and Purdue, have a 500 record. And then as soon as you go up 1 to Ohio State's 18-9 on the season.
Yeah.
And every team is consistently about better than that as you go up. It's crazy. Just the record of the Big Ten, I think, in general. Every team is dangerous. But beating Purdue, beating Rutgers without Isaiah Livers, I think Michigan has a really good chance to possibly win out from here on out. They play Wisconsin in a couple days. Then they go to Ohio State, which will be kind of tough. Then they play Nebraska, should be an easy win. And then their final game of the season is at Maryland, which that one's obviously going to be a little bit tough. Do you think Michigan can win out?
I honestly think there's a chance they could go 1-3 in the stretch. And that is because although Michigan State has a tougher slate, Wisconsin has been a pretty good team on the road this season, and they smacked Michigan State at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
They've beaten up on a whole bunch of teams, although they're just a 17-10 team. They're still good, and they play Wisconsin basketball. They make it tough for you on offense and defense. Every time Michigan goes to Ohio State, it's a tough game. Nebraska's, that's going to be a win. And then at Maryland is going to be really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I think they could win at Maryland because other teams have gone into Maryland and haven't had a huge problem with them. But the way Michigan is playing right now, I'm really hoping they don't go 1-3, especially with Isaiah Livers. They're one of the better teams in the Big Ten. It's unquestionable. Once he got hurt, that's when they went on the losing streak. He comes back, they figure it out just like that, and they get onto a roll. So as long as he's healthy and he's playing, they have a chance to win every game, a really good chance. And they're not going to get blown out in any of these games. I think it's every single one is going to be close, maybe except for the Nebraska game. And I'm hoping they win the Wisconsin game by double digits. That would be really encouraging, but I don't see it. I think besides that Nebraska game, I think all of these games will be close. And I think it's more likely they'll end up going like 2-2 because those Big Ten games, when it comes down to the last minute, it's a toss up to where like who's gonna hit the big shot, who's gonna miss it, who misses free throws. It always comes down to that. So you never know when it comes down to that situation. So it's a bit of a toss up for the last four with Michigan. They're playing really well, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah, I think one of the bright spots for them right now is Franz Wagner. He's looking really good. Obviously, he's shown signs throughout the season, and he's been a little bit inconsistent. So hopefully, he can keep this up. But especially coming off that Purdue game, a concern again, which I know it's mostly just me, but the point guard Xavier Simpson. I don't want to read the numbers, but I'm going to. He shot 0 of 10. 0 of 5 from the 3, 4 of 8 from the free throw line. I know that's not his bright spot. He's not an offensive player necessarily. He did have 6 assists, 7 rebounds. Only 1 turnover, so I'll take that.
So the only problem is the jump. Every other part of his game is good. It's just the jump shot. Some games it falls. Some games it doesn't fall at all. Yeah. So, it's a toss-up on that one.
And I think my only slight problem, and it's only slight, is that it's still taking that many shots when you're not necessarily a shooter. I feel like sometimes Xavier needs to just realize his shot is not falling for that day. And for him to take 5 threes and go 0 of 5, I would much rather him go 0 of 5 going for layups or something, because that's more of his natural ability.
I agree with that.
I don't know. So it's not that concerning, honestly, because we've seen it from him in the past. But it's just always one of those weird things that I think about personally that I don't necessarily like about this Michigan team, especially when Wagner's playing well, Livers is back. I don't know. I don't necessarily know either where the other shots would go to, because you just give Livers more shots.
Yeah,
Wagner back.
There are a lot
shots.
of those 5 threes. When he's open, I'm not mad when he takes a shot. But when he starts 0 of 3 or 0 for 4, that's when I'm like, okay, you can slow down now.
Yeah.
But whenever he has open threes and he hits one of the first 3, I'm fine if he takes 5, because there's a chance he'll hit another one.
Yeah.
And in the Rutgers game, he started out 3 of 3 from 3, and that set the tone for the rest of the game. So
right.
Yeah, it's literally a toss up of whether or not will it fall today or will it not.
Yeah.
So that's one of the shaky things about the team, and sometimes their late game free throw shooting is really questionable. Dave DeJulius always misses one and makes one. It never fails. I never see him miss 2, and I rarely see him make 2. It's always miss 1, make 1.
Yeah.
So, those are things. Since they're deep into the season already, it's kind of who they are at this point. But I wish they could clean it up, but every team has flaws.
Yeah, I think their only reliable free throw shooter is Isaiah Livers at the moment.
I think behind him, I think Franz Wagner is second. I think he's in he's either high 70s or low 80s percentage wise. But Isaiah, he's still shooting 93 for the season.
Yeah,
his percentages are nuts.
He's been
now.
Real good.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I used to get in a lot of arguments with kids that they casually watch the NBA and big college fans, and their reasoning for not watching the NBA is that NBA players can't make free throws. I was like, well, you must not be a very big college basketball fan, because college basketball players miss so many free throws. And it's one of those things that I think goes under the radar, especially in college basketball, because it's more talked about in the NBA about free throw shooting. But sometimes in college, there are just
I think honestly it's more of a pressure thing. I
Yeah.
think a lot of guys in college basketball, if you're not the star, or like a lot of centers miss free throws because college basketball, the post game still is a huge important part of the game. Where in the NBA, it's like halfway fading away.
Yeah.
But like besides that, you have like guys that you have shooters coming in, like most of your guards and most of your shooting guards and most of your small forwards. It's rare in college basketball for dudes to just be like terrible free throw shooters at those possessions. Most teams have like good free throw shooters around there. It's the pressure situations in college basketball
Yeah.
where guys usually come up short.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, like in the Arizona Oregon game, like last week, Josh Green missed 2 free throws in the last minute, and then their freshman center Christian Coloco missed 2 free throws to win the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those situations where they come up short. But I can understand where it comes in the. NBA players should shoot better from the free throw line. I understand that sentiment.
Right. Top 25 changed a little bit. Like I said, a lot of Big Tens have come back into the top 25. But we do have a new number 1. Kansas beating Baylor over the weekend. It was actually a really good game. Kansas looked like they were going to pull away with it for a while, and then Baylor made a couple really nice plays to make it really close and make Kansas kind of sweat a little bit. But Kansas was able to clutch it out, and they have taken over the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I watched that whole Kansas and Baylor game. They did not make many mistakes in that game. It was like close to a perfect performance.
Yeah.
Every time they got into the paint, they found a way to throw a lob to Udoka Azubuike. He finished every time. I'm pretty sure he finished with like 24 and 19.
Yeah. I think that was like a career high in rebounds.
He played like 33 minutes, which is so impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He cut down a lot of weight over the offseason.
Yeah.
But yeah, Devin Dotson, not a lot of turnovers. Isaiah Moss hitting open threes. They're just a really good team that doesn't make many mistakes. They play smart. They know where they're all supposed to be on the court, and they're all in the right place at the right time. And it showed against Baylor.
Yeah. Like
every time Baylor would get close, they'd extend it, and the crowd would go quiet, and they just play efficient, smart basketball. So yeah, they should be number 1 right now. They deserve it.
Yeah, I think so too, especially in the craziness that has been college basketball this season. I think just beating the number 1 team puts you into the number 1 spot for the most part, as long as you're up there like Kansas was. Another interesting one, your Aztecs lost, Malik.
I don't want to talk about it.
They lost.
I guess they were going to lose eventually. I didn't want it to be until the tournament, although they could still make a Final Four run. But yeah, they finally hit a bump in the road. It's fine though. It wasn't a blowout or anything. They got beat by a surprisingly good team in UNLV, and it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I mean,
go Aztecs.
And I always say, like, not that it's a big reasoning, but we know of UNLV. It's not like some random team that nobody's heard of and you never see anywhere.
They haven't been as relevant as they used to be.
Right, but they're a good college basketball program, I guess. If that lightens the blow for you at all. Another good one, Florida State had a really good win over Louisville.
They were crazy impressive in that game.
They looked really good. I think they're a team to watch out for.
Yeah, the way they blew them out in that second half was really surprising.
Yeah,
because it was close, and Louisville had a lead for a lot of the game, and then all of a sudden Florida State just hit a gear, and Louisville couldn't keep up with them anymore. Louisville has been a weird up and down team all season, but it seems like they had control for the most of that game. But yeah, Devin Vassell, Trent Forrest, they've got some guys. Patrick Williams, they got some long athletic guys a few guys that'll probably play in the NBA. They haven't relied on their like big 7'2" guys as much as they have in the past few seasons. They still have them, but they've relied a lot more on their guard play and their star forwards to get it done, and they've played really well this season.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be another one of those teams that a lot of people tend to forget about going into the tournament.
People never think about Florida State.
Yeah, when they're making their brackets and stuff. And Florida State, they, especially in the last few years, they have always figured out a way to get there. And they just have massive talent. Now, in the past, they've just had gigantic players. Mufanu Kabengele in the past. Jonathan Isaac was Florida State, right?
Christ Kumaje,
Christ Kamaje, yeah. They've
the
had
7'3" skinny terror.
they stand on the court and they look like their entire team is made up of Taco Falls. Basically.
This is a different team though.
Yeah. It's not your typical Florida State team, but I'm just saying, like, they've always figured out a way to use their talent to its maximum capacity, basically.
Yeah. Leonard Hamilton always gets the best out of those guys.
Yeah. Duke lost to NC State
in embarrassing fashion, honestly.
Yeah. That was not good.
They lost by 22.
Yeah. And
it honestly looks even worse on North Carolina right now, but we're not going to get into that depressing topic.
Just me personally, I like seeing the ACC down. That's just
I don't mind it either. I like when conferences that are known for being at the top kind of have some fall offs.
Right.
Like Virginia's third in the ACC right now, and they've just been good. They haven't been anything over that.
Yeah. But the crazy thing too is, like, and this shows what college basketball is this season, is that Duke just beat Florida State not too long ago before that. After we just talked about Florida State being really, really good, and now we're dogging Duke. But that's just how the college basketball landscape is. The best part about it, Duke's got to play NC State again in 2 weeks.
I feel like it's going to be a lot different in that one. When it's in Cameron Indoor, they're gonna have more intensity than they had.
And that one's going to be on ESPN. I'm excited. Let's see. What's another team? Oh, we were going to talk about Creighton. Malik's been saying multiple times to me that when Michigan beat Creighton, that was a really big deal. And, I kept saying, I mean, Creighton, they're a good program. They're always around, but I don't know if they're that good. Creighton's number 10 in the top 25 right now, making me eat my words. Yes, again, they're one of those teams that plays in a smaller conference. Big East isn't what it once was, but they're rattling off wins. They've beaten Villanova, Seton Hall, Marquette, Butler. They're knocking a lot of teams out of the top 25.
After Doug McDermott left Creighton, people just knew them because of that and because his dad was the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, people have just stopped paying attention since then. Creighton has some serious players on this team. Marcus Zagorowski, their point guard, is a pro in my opinion. He is a knockdown three-point shooter. He's crazy quick. He has great handle. He's a really good scorer and a floor general. I can't remember what their two guards' name is. Mitch Ballack, I think that's his name. He's one of the best shooters in the country. Lefty, three-point assassin. I think he could be a 3-and-D guy in the NBA. Potential three-point shootout contestant in the future because he's ridiculous when he's on fire. And Tyshawn Alexander also. That three-man punch they have at the 1, 2, and 3 really is just like too much for a lot of teams. And then the rest of their guys play tough defense. They're long and athletic, and they just make it tough for other teams. So when you have those three offensive advantages against every Big East team, their 1, 2, 3 is the best 1, 2, 3 in the Big East to me. And then you just have a tough team outside of that. That's tough to beat. So, I knew early in the season, I knew what they had returning. I knew that was the game that was going to tell me whether Michigan was going to be pretty good or pretty bad throughout the rest of the season. And them beating Creighton in pretty convincing fashion showed me Michigan actually was going to be a good team this season. And I'm not surprised Creighton is at number 10 at this point because, they get it done.
I still am. To see Dayton, San Diego State, and Creighton in the top 10, a little bit crazy to me.
Oh, nobody saw that coming at all, especially Dayton. Yeah. People talked about Obi Toppin, but nobody thought Dayton would be this good as a team.
Yeah. Again, we won't know, in my personal opinion, we won't really know who Dayton is until we get to the tournament.
I think they can make a Final Four run because they're that good. In the Maui Invitational, they were slapping.
That's true.
They were slapping serious teams.
They did look good in that tournament. Yeah, you're right.
They have Javon Crutcher. Their point guard is honestly one of the best point guards in the country. They have such underrated talent. Mm-hmm. Their starting five is so really good. Obi Toppin overshadows the rest of it.
Mhm.
They are a real like quality team. They just happen to be Dayton. Like if this was Ohio State, people would be like, "Oh yeah, all those players, Javon Crusher, Obi Toppin, they have it all." But
Yeah.
they're not Ohio State. They're
Yeah.
better than Ohio State.
But
They
that's the hard part when you play in a smaller conference. Is
Yeah.
because it's hard to gauge talent from playing in a smaller conference because you're not playing all those big name teams that everybody knows about. So that'll be super interesting. Again, I can't wait for the tournament bracket to come out and we just debate all day long about being wrong or right or whatever
Yeah.
because it's going to be ridiculous.
Also, a little note: Pac-12 was terrible last year. It's getting pretty competitive right now. UCLA, everybody thought UCLA was going to be terrible. They're up to third in the Pac-12 right now. Mick Cronin has those kids playing great. Arizona State is first in the Pac-12 right now after their win against Oregon last week. So, yeah, it's looking crazy. They have like 5 or 6 teams. They have like 3 teams that are like in bubble conversation and 3 teams that are like most definitely going to make the tournament. Colorado, Oregon, Arizona State. That's like guaranteed. And Arizona is probably going to get in too. And then you have Stanford who's on the bubble, USC who's on the bubble. UCLA is creeping up into the bubble. So, yeah, things are getting really, really close and interesting now that we're getting close to March.
Yeah, and we'll see even more craziness, I think, when we get into conference tournaments because that just changes everything. If somebody gets upset or something in that.
I think people will get more annoyed this year by conference tournaments, probably more than like the past 10 years, probably. Because there are going to be a few teams that aren't supposed to be in the conference championship that make it there. And I think it's going to happen in like 5 or 6 different tournaments.
Yeah.
Because it's been so all over the place this year.
Just thinking of the Big Ten tournament alone.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like, I have no
weird.
idea what's going to happen in that tournament. Because every team is going to be dangerous. Anyway, we'll talk about more college basketball next week as obviously Michigan State are kind of rounding out their season. We'll see where Michigan State's at after a couple tough games they got coming up. But let's switch over to the NBA a little bit. We'll just talk about some things, whatever's going on. One of the things I want to touch on, even though it's actually a little bit relevant. Bradley Beal has been going off for the Wizards.
Listen, man, Washington does not deserve Bradley Beal.
They
really don't.
They're on their way to the 8th seed. As weird as that is.
They actually are, which is weird.
Well, they have a chance.
Very weird.
They've lost 3 straight, even though Bradley Beal has balled out.
It all depends, honestly. Is Brooklyn going to fall off with Kyrie being out for the rest of the season?
I don't think so. I think they get better.
Can Spencer Dinwiddie turn it up and lead them to the playoffs?
I think Brooklyn gets better with Kyrie. They're going to look like they did last year. I think Spencer Dinwiddie.
Well, D'Angelo Russell was a huge part of that puzzle, so I'm not going to say they're going to look exactly, but
I think they can be very similar.
They've played well without Kyrie. They've shown they can.
Because my biggest thing with the Nets is I think Karis LeVert has gone back to what he was at the beginning of last season before he got injured. When he came back, he did all right, but he's been playing really good for that team. And the Nets team, they just play so much better when all their role players get a chance.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, that dynamic for that team. Now, I think when they get Kevin Durant next year, it's going to change everything. I think they'll be good because of Kevin Durant. But just solo Kyrie Irving, not a good look. They're just Kyrie is some weird enigma.
Solo Kyrie Irving has shown that he's not the leader of men. He tries to be, but it comes off forced, and the guys around him don't gravitate to him. He's more of a move out the way and let me figure things out type of guy. And that's good. That's not good. It wasn't good for the Celtics, and I really think it's not good for this team that needs their role players to step up and play huge roles for them to win.
Yeah.
So yeah, having KD is a huge part of that puzzle.
Mm-hmm. What's another? Oh yeah, Toronto back into the 2nd seed. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games.
It is unbelievable. Almost every player on that team has stepped up. I didn't realize until a few days ago, Norman Powell is averaging 15 a game this season.
Yeah.
He's averaging 15. Serge Ibaka is having almost his best season. And he's like,
Yep.
what year is he in? Like
He's old at
Yeah.
this point. Nobody
old
realizes.
Serge Ibaka is stepping up now. Like now that Kawhi left, Fred VanVleet stepped up, Kyle Lowry stepped up. Everybody took the next step, and that rarely happens.
Yeah.
It's always usually a few disappointments and a few guys step up. This is something completely different. The development they did through their G League, the scouting they've done in the draft, the free agents. Rondé Hollis Jefferson was a great pickup.
Yeah.
They have Stanley Johnson. We're not going to talk about that, but yeah, every single piece of what they've been able to build through this team has just been ridiculously impressive. Especially Pascal Siakam being the star of this team.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to point out a game real quick, and it's obviously not an important game. They played the Cavs. They beat the Cavs 117-97. This was their recent game. And they played Rondé Hollis Jefferson, Patrick McCaw, the champ, Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet. And they won handily over the Cavs. Now, the Cavs aren't a good team, but the Raptors, they didn't have Pascal Siakam. Their bench, Chris Boucher, people don't know who that is. I do.
I think it's Boucher, but
yeah, I think you're right. Stanley Johnson, people don't know who he is. Unfortunately, we do. OJ, he's been solid for them. And then I don't even know who these guys are at the bottom of their bench. Is this Shamari Pons?
Shamari Pons is on their team. He doesn't play much, but yeah, he's on their team.
Yeah, he played 2 minutes.
Oh, good for him.
19 points off of Terrence Davis.
That development has been insane to me. When he came out of Ole Miss last year, I knew he was a good college player, but I think the Raptors are the only team right now. The Raptors and the Heat maybe are the only two teams that can make these types of rosters work because their development and their scouting has been so elite, especially the Raptors and what they've done in the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any other roster where Terrence Davis steps in and he's just producing from the start. Like Nick Nurse has been insane. He might be at the top of the list for Coach of the Year.
I was going to say
what he's done.
As much as people talk about like Danny Ainge and the Celtics and what they've done with their pieces and talent and the moves they made, Masai Ujiri, Nick Nurse, that combo has done some things. Like the Celtics, they got a lot of high picks. They got a lot of crazy talent. So they just did good with that talent.
Danny Ainge works his magic and always ends up getting what he wants usually.
Right.
He always ends up with a star, whether it's through the draft or through free agency. The Raptors, they got Kawhi Leonard once, but look what they're doing right now.
With basically nobodies. They're just developing their talent so perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of that does stem from Dwayne Casey, I believe.
Yeah, he started it and he deserves a lot. He deserves a lot of credit for getting it rolling.
Right, but obviously it seems like it's just from top to bottom in that organization. They know how to scout talent, develop talent, and I think it's one of the coolest, like, kind of low-key storylines in the NBA this season is how well this Raptors team is doing. And especially because the East isn't that bad. Like, people always are like, oh, well, the East is terrible. Anybody can do well. Well, the East is pretty good this year.
The top 6 in the East are legit good teams.
Yeah, and I think for the Raptors to be sitting there at 2, especially when you look at the teams behind them, the Celtics, the Sixers, the rosters of those teams compared to the Raptors teams, and then comparing the records is incredible.
It seems laughable.
Yeah.
It sounds like it should be. But, yeah, number 2 in the East.
It doesn't make any sense.
I think even when you stack up Milwaukee's roster to like Boston and Philadelphia, it doesn't seem like it should work out the way it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you have superior coaching and you have everything that just fits together in a perfect puzzle from organization to team and all the way like top to bottom, it works out like this.
Yep.
I'd say other organizations should take notes, but they'd most likely take the wrong notes.
Yeah,
like
probably.
Vlade Divac would probably look and be like, "Ooh, Chris Boucher is 6'9" and shoots threes. Let's draft that.
Yeah.
Let's trade for Jonathan Isaac. Maybe he could do that. He'd do something crazy like that.
Probably. Yeah. On the other end, the Western Conference, the race for the 8th seed is still alive and well. The Portland Trail Blazers have won a game. Coming out of All-Star break.
The Pelicans, man.
The Grizzlies have dropped 3 straight. It's what we talked about. The Trailblazers and Pelicans are right there.
I know you want to talk the whole show about your team. I know you want to do it. How Zion Williamson is bullying every player in the NBA.
He's playing pretty good.
Something I have been confused about for years now. I don't know why people thought Zion Williamson was gonna get bullied by other people in the NBA. This isn't the 80s. This isn't the 90s. If you touch people in the NBA now, you might get a fine. If you grab somebody too hard. He's 6'6", 280.
Mm-hmm.
He was 260 in high school. He was 270 last year. The strength and athleticism just keeps increasing. Why did people think when he was in high school, when he gets to college, we don't know if this is going to work. This probably isn't going to work. When he gets to the NBA, it's grown men up there. Those grown men aren't him. They aren't built like this. They don't have this insane God-given body Zion has. Did you see the play against the Warriors where he missed a free throw? They got the rebound.
Yeah.
He wrestled the ball away from 2 players and got an and one layup.
Mm-hmm.
There is no player in the NBA that can physically match up with him.
Yep.
But people have just been questioning it like it's old school basketball.
Yeah. And tonight we get the matchup everybody wants. Zion Williamson is taking on LeBron James for the first time. Late night.
They're not going to guard each
TNT
other.
basketball.
That's the part that everybody says they're not going to.
I bet you they will for about a play.
Nah.
They will for a play. The crowd will go crazy.
LeBron.
It'll be a switch or something.
LeBron, he only guards people seriously in the playoffs when he doesn't care about. Well, he doesn't get embarrassed often, especially in the regular season, because he won't let his reputation slide in any way. So he'll only guard Zion maybe 2 or 3 possessions in the game. He should hope he doesn't end up being posted up by Zion.
I was gonna say the best possibility is that Zion Williamson could either post up Anthony Davis or LeBron, or he could poster either one of them.
I really hope LeBron goes into the lane thinking he has a wide open dunk, and Zion comes out of nowhere and swats him to the ground.
That'd be cool.
And makes everybody just go, oh no. I want people to see the mortality of LeBron James because they seem to think he's a god.
Yeah.
And I don't agree.
He's played really good this season.
He's 35 and he's the Terminator, which is insane. Yeah. He's still physically better than everybody in the NBA besides Zion. And he's still physically better. He's the most physically impressive player in NBA history.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is what it is. But, yeah, I hope Zion has some highlight plays that make people just that make their jaws drop.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing with Zion, too, is that so many people want to compare him to LeBron or the other rookies and stuff. I'm glad people are finally catching on. Zion's closest player comparison is Charles Barkley. Big, burly dude. People don't remember, and I only have to watch videos because I was way too young, even at Charles's end of his career, basically. Charles Barkley was athletic, and he could jump. The guy was 6'5", 6'6" at most, leading the league in rebounds.
And this
and people forget that because of the way he looks on TNT nowadays.
This right here is to a whole different level.
Yeah.
This is something completely different.
It's above and beyond, but it's the closest thing we can get.
That's the only comparison I could think of. Yeah. In any basketball history to match him.
Yeah, and my biggest thing is I always say it's like Charles Barkley mixed with Blake Griffin. It's this weird, crazy thing that doesn't look like it should work, but it works. And if he can ever figure out how to consistently shoot and knock down free throws, he's going to be a terror for years to come. And if he can stay healthy, I think that's one of the concerns for people, and I get it just because of the body. But I'm hoping for the best because it's exciting to watch. And the Pelicans are right there. The problem is the Trailblazers and the Pelicans are both fighting for the 8th spot, and they both can't get in. That's what I'm disappointed at. So I think I'd rather have the Pelicans than my boy Melo in the playoffs. But at the same time, it'd be cool to see John Morant, too.
Yeah, Dame is my guy, but I don't want to see that team in the playoffs. I don't want to see Hassan Whiteside struggling to run up and down, and I don't want to see Melo getting embarrassed in a playoff series. Like, I can wait on that one.
Yeah. Another thing to talk about too, Houston Rockets. They've won 4 straight. They're 8-2 in their last 10. The small ball is working, and I'm still surprised by it. I know it's really like ignited Russell Westbrook. I get that aspect of it, but I just can't believe that no team has been able to capitalize on that and just pound the ball in the paint.
Well, but the basketball isn't like that anymore.
I know,
besides Joel Embiid and like 2 or 3 other guys in the league, there aren't many other centers you can throw it to and say dominate them.
Yeah.
Which is why Daryl Morey is extremely intelligent. I'm pretty sure they did all the research into there are only a few centers that can. You got Nikola Jokic, you got Anthony Davis. Name the other teams that have centers that can really dominate them when it comes to the playoffs.
Rudy Gobert. Not
name the
offensively.
other centers
Not
that can
offensively.
really name the other centers that can really dominate them when it comes to the playoffs. When Russ and James get going, Rudy Gobert is going to be pretty much useless.
Do you count Kristaps?
Nah, I don't really count him because he's more of a like mid to 3-point game guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's never like developed the big man get down there, all the post moves. He has some post moves, but he's more comfortable mid range to 3-pointer. So you pretty much have 2 centers that are scary for Houston in the playoffs, and I don't think this is gonna like work out for them in the playoffs. To be honest,
Yeah, I agree.
And also like them like picking up Jeff Green and DeMari Carroll, I don't think that's not going to do much for him either. So it's Russ and James or bust. And when Russ and James are on, it's hard for a team to beat that because that's 2 Hall of Famers you're playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, they look really good right now. Russ is playing great. James is playing great. But when one is off and the other one just has to get off and the players around them are just standing there waiting to shoot a 3, that's when things are going to get that's when people are going to notice in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah. Last little NBA thing I want to talk about really quick. Timberwolves are still losing. D'Angelo Russell hasn't made a difference.
He's only played like 2 games since he got to Minnesota, so you can't really judge that situation. Malik Beasley has been the biggest takeaway of that trade so far.
Yeah, I think Anthony Towns has sat out too a couple games.
They should sit out the rest of the season probably.
I just think it's funny. I think I don't know where this franchise is going. It's hilarious. Hilarious.
Where have they gone since Kevin Garnett?
Nowhere. Well, they did have like Kevin Love, Nikola Pekovic for like that 1 year where they were.
And how many games did they win? 36?
I don't know.
I'm pretty they won like 35, 36 games at the most.
And then I think there was a point where Pekovic got hurt, left the NBA, and then it's been a downward spiral ever since. It's just funny. I think it's funny.
I can't say it's funny. I feel I don't feel that bad for Minnesota because
come on,
these like I don't. There are some organizations I don't feel bad for because they're just idiots and they do the same stuff every year. Like Sacramento, that's funny. Minnesota's just depressing. The Pistons are just depressing.
If you ever have a chance to go on YouTube and watch, I can't remember who the YouTuber is. I wish I could, but you could probably just search why Minnesota is bad or something. Why the Timberwolves are bad.
I've watched most of those videos.
There's a video about every draft that Minnesota has had since forever, and it's hilarious to see what they've missed out on, what they've traded away. It's sad, but it's funny.
Yeah. Then them and the Kings are probably the worst drafting teams in the past 10, 15 years, and it's not really close.
I think the Pistons are up there. I really do.
They've
been somewhat saved a few times.
I think more with the Pistons, I think it's been bad luck when it comes to the Pistons because it's not like they drafted like terrible players like Minnesota and Sacramento has done a lot of times.
Or something.
Yeah, like
okay.
I to this day I still understand what Joe Dumars was trying to do with Rodney Stuckey. Kentavious was a solid player for Detroit. He wasn't bad. I think Stan Van Gundy ruined Stanley Johnson. Like, how many terrible picks were there in those years, to be honest? Greg Monroe was a good player. Andre Drummond was an all-star. Brandon Knight, we don't talk about that. Chris talks about that, but us two, we don't talk about it.
He had like a year or two that he was good or decent.
I don't like reminiscing over those years. Yeah, like picks like Austin Day, that was trash. That was a horrible pick. But it's just been bad luck outside of that.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of just horrible picks.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Kennard is good.
Yeah.
He just got hurt.
Stanley Johnson.
He was a really good rookie. People forget during his rookie year, he was looking good almost every other game. And in the playoffs, he played well in that Cleveland series. And he defended LeBron pretty well. And then Stan Van just,
And he lost all his confidence.
They gave him too much control. Then Van Gundy lost it.
Yeah. All right. For the last, what do we got? 9 or so minutes, we're going to talk about the NFL real quick. Joe Burrow might not be drafted number 1. They found out his hands are 9 inches. That's too small.
Listen, Joey.
Tua, I think he had like 10.5-inch hands or something. It was crazy. Tua number 1.
I have something to say about this. I think people have been understating this hands thing. It is the most important part of scouting a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
If you have those small hands, you can't play quarterback in the NFL. And I'm completely lying right now because I hate this small hands thing. It doesn't matter. If you're a good quarterback, you're a good quarterback. If you have the IQ and you're a leader of men and you have those intangibles, it doesn't matter how small your hands are.
Yeah.
He look at 60 touchdowns. 60 touchdowns to what? 5 interceptions? Were his hands too small last season?
Yeah,
in the
ball's
SEC
gonna slip out of his hands. That's why he threw so many interceptions. What are
Wait
you
till
talking
it
about?
rains. It's you know how windy it is in Cincinnati? It's cold, man. It's cold.
It's funny.
Joe Burrow can't. Yeah.
It's really funny how people are making a big deal out of it.
People are making an even bigger deal about they think he's gonna pull a Eli Manning, although he never said he would. People just have to do it to make big news. But yeah. You can't get mad at a guy saying he'd explore his options if it came to it. But yeah, he came out today because everybody was going up in arms about it. He denied it and said, I'll play anywhere anybody wants to take me. I think it's stupid that players have to come out and do that. If they can voice their opinions, players have the option to do what they want. It's been done before, so it obviously can be done again. You can't get mad at a dude for doing it when it's been done before. They didn't criticize Eli Manning. I'm pretty sure another quarterback did it too. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that people don't like is because he's like an Ohio guy, that they're like, well, why wouldn't he want to play for his hometown team? I wouldn't necessarily want to play for the Detroit Lions right now if I was an NFL prospect. So I get that. The other real quick funny thing about the hands thing, Patrick Mahomes came out and tweeted, he's like, his hands were measured at 9.25 inches. He's like, I don't think I've had much of a problem, so I think we're all right.
If you can throw,
and
if
then,
you can play the game, you can play the game.
And then they made the comparisons when they said, I can't remember who the other quarterback, but one of them was Jared Goff, also has 9-inch hands. Jared Goff has been a solid quarterback in the NFL. What is the big problem?
Yes, indeed. I assume you really watch the draft combine.
I only watch usually the 40 times.
Okay.
That's a fun one.
I wouldn't say I'm a combine enthusiast, but every year I make sure to watch all the combine stuff, even though it barely matters. Every year, they did it with Johnny Manziel. The hands weren't the problem with Johnny Manziel. He was an alcoholic and he liked to party and didn't like to work hard.
Yeah.
That was his problem. You should watch the combine this weekend.
Oh, it is this
Especially,
weekend?
Yeah. It starts this Thursday. I mean, you don't have to watch like the O-line,
yeah,
D-line
I'm not
day.
into that stuff. I like the fun, like
the day with the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's the stuff to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some guys that like Henry Ruggs, he's projected to he's probably going to run 4.2 something. So that's going to be interesting. Some quarterbacks emerge. Some, yeah. I love watching the combine. Once again, even though it doesn't mean much.
Yeah. Quick note from the Lions. They're still taking offers on Darius Slay. Real quick, do you think the Lions should keep and sign Slay to whatever amount he wants? or whatever they can agree upon? Or do you think he needs to be traded?
I think if this situation goes longer, Darius Slay has voiced his opinion and said, if I can go, if people want me to go, like he said he has no problem with leaving Detroit. And I don't know, if you're an organization, if a guy wants to go, you should let him go. But also, he's probably your best player. When he's healthy, Darius Slay is a Pro Bowl corner. He's shut down for most of the time. You need a guy like that, especially with Matt Patricia being the defensive coach he is. You need guys like that to be cornerstones of your franchise. But if he wants to go, you should get rid of him. I feel like if they pay him, he'll have no problem. Once guys get paid, they forget about all that stuff.
Right.
So I say just pay him into all this right now. Because they're the Lions, it'll probably go on a little bit longer. There'll probably be rumors about them being very interested in Okudah as the draft gets closer. Who knows, man? But they need to sign him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's one of the few pieces that has worked for this Lions team. One of the cornerstones, like you said, cornerback being one of the biggest positions on defense that you want to secure. So I think even if he wants the money, you just got to pay him. And I don't necessarily think they need to look at Jeff Okudah, because at this point, the Giants have said they're willing to trade. So at the number 4 spot, so if somebody wants to move up for that, they can. The Lions have said it as well. So I think the trade value of those early picks are starting to come into fruition. So maybe there's something there that happens. Maybe the Lions move back. Maybe they get a better player. Who knows what's going to happen? But it just makes it so much more interesting. And I think I would rather just hang on to Darius Slay. And then even if they still wanted to draft Jeff Okudah, go for it. Then we have one of the best secondaries possibly in the NFL.
I agree.
That's all I got. The Lions, make something happen. I hope Jeff Okudah has good results from this combine, because I'm still up in the air about him.
He's going to. He's, as like in terms of athleticism, there's a reason he came out of high school as the number 1 safety in the country. And he transitioned to corner. Or was he the number 1 corner? I can't remember. He was the number 1 DB in the country when he came out of Texas. And he lived up to the hype. All the athleticism is there. I'm sure he's going to clock 4.4. I'm sure his vertical is going to be like close to 40. He's the top DB on the board for a reason. Even if he doesn't have great times, the production is there. And it's all, the tape is even more important than those combine results.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, next week we will talk more college basketball, as, like we said, Michigan State has a big game tonight. It's going to be interesting. Probably talk about Zion versus the Lakers. That's going to be a good one tonight. Man, I got to watch basketball tonight. I got to remind myself. Probably we'll let Malik go on and on about the combine if he wants, as much as he wants. Talk about some maybe prospects that are underrated or people don't necessarily know, aren't talked about, that we could look at. So that'll be an interesting dive for that. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be more news, more crazy things as we approach closer and closer to playoffs, March Madness, this crazy time of the sports season, one of my favorite times during the spring. From my partner, Malik Hill, I'm Joey Tysick. This has been Views from the Sidelines. We'll see you guys next time.
Give me your score prediction. Michigan State or Iowa? What you got?
I got Iowa. 75-68. Low score.
I'm going Michigan State. 62-59. Cash us at the buzzer.